In a garden in Milan, in the year 386, a brilliant and broken man sat weeping under a fig tree and heard a child's voice telling him to pick up a book. What happened next would shape Western civilization for 1600 years. The man who would one day change the church was born in 354 AD in Thagaste, a modest Roman provincial town in Numidia, in what is today northern Algeria. The precise day of his birth is debated. Tradition places it on November 13th, though this is not universally confirmed by scholars. His father, Patricius, was a pagan Roman official of modest means. His mother, Monica, a devout Christian woman, would become one of the most influential figures of his life and of Christian history. She prayed for her son's soul with an urgency that bordered on anguish, year after year, across decades. He was a gifted student, sent to study rhetoric in Carthage, the great coastal city of Roman North Africa. There, his intellectual life exploded, but so did his personal one. He took a concubine, a woman whose name history has never recorded, and together they had a son, Deodatus, whose name means gift of God. For over a decade she was his companion. For over a decade he did not marry her. He also fell deep into Manichaeism, a dualistic religious system that taught the universe was a battleground between light and darkness, and it held him fast for 9 years. He eventually moved to Rome and then to Milan, where he had secured a prestigious post as a professor of rhetoric. It was there that he encountered Bishop Ambrose, a man of formidable intellect and spiritual depth. Ambrose did not convert him through argument alone. It was watching the bishop's manner of reading, his sermons, his sheer intellectual seriousness about the faith that began to move the ground beneath Augustine's feet. The crisis came to a head in the summer of 386. In his Confessions, Augustine describes sitting in a garden in Milan, overwhelmed by grief at his own inability to change himself. A man who famously had once prayed, "Lord, make me chaste, but not yet." Then, through his tears, he heard a child's voice, or something like one, chanting repeatedly, "Tolle, lege," take up and read. He opened the nearest book, Paul's letter to the Romans, and his eyes fell on the words of Romans 13:13 and 14. In the Confessions he writes that at that moment, a light of certainty flooded my heart, and all the darkness of doubt was dispelled. At the Easter Vigil of 387 AD, he was baptized by Ambrose in Milan. He was 32 years old. The woman who had been his companion for over a decade had by this point been sent away, her fate, and even her name, lost to history. His mother Monica died shortly after his baptism at Ostia on the journey home to North Africa. She had lived to see the answer to her prayers. He returned to North Africa, and by around 395 or 396, scholars debate the precise year, he was consecrated as a bishop, serving the community of Hippo. He would hold that post for the rest of his life. From this small North African port city, Augustine produced a body of writing that is almost incomprehensible in its scale and depth. The Confessions, written around 397 to 400 AD, was unlike anything the ancient world had produced. A brutally honest account of a man's inner life, his failures, his longing, his encounter with God. It is widely considered the first autobiography in the Western literary tradition. It is still in print. It is still read. When the Visigoths sacked Rome in 410 AD, an event that sent shockwaves of theological crisis across the Roman world, he responded with The City of God, a vast work begun around 413 and completed around 426. It was nothing less than a reframing of all human history. 2 cities, 2 loves, 2 destinies. It became a cornerstone of Christian political philosophy for the next 1,000 years. He also wrote On the Trinity, the Enchiridion, a handbook on faith, hope, and charity, and a remarkable late-career work called The Retractions, in which he systematically reviewed his own writings and corrected what he felt he had gotten wrong. His letters and sermons alone fill entire library shelves. Remarkably, new texts have been discovered as recently as the 1990s, the Divjak letters and the Dolbo sermons, and scholars believe the full corpus may still not be complete. Augustine also shaped monasticism. He composed what became known as the Augustinian Rule, a guide for communal religious life. Though scholars note that the degree to which this text reflects words directly composed by him versus later compilations attributed to him remains a matter of honest debate. Whatever its precise origins, it became the foundation for the order of Augustinians and influenced religious communities across the centuries. But the final chapter of his life unfolded in darkness. In his last years, the world he had known was collapsing around him. The Vandals, a Germanic people who had swept through Spain and crossed into North Africa, were advancing on Hippo Regius. By 430 AD, they had placed the city under siege. Augustine was 75 years old and gravely ill. According to his biographer Pisidius of Calama, who was present, he spent his final days asking to have the penitential psalms written on the walls of his room so that he could read them from his bed. He died on August 28, 430 AD, as the Vandals still held Hippo under siege. Tradition holds that shortly after his death, miraculous signs were attributed to his relics. And tradition holds that when those relics were later translated to Pavia, Italy, around 725 AD, by Liutprand, king of the Lombards, that journey too was accompanied by reported miraculous signs. Augustine was never canonized through a formal papal process, because that process did not yet exist. He was recognized as a saint by popular acclamation and the authority of the Church, in the ancient manner. In 1298, Pope Boniface VIII formally declared him a Doctor of the Church, a title meaning his writings are recognized as exceptionally important for the whole Church's understanding of the faith. He is known specifically as the Doctor Gratiae, the Doctor of Grace. His influence defies easy summary. Thomas Aquinas quoted him more than any other author. Martin Luther was an Augustinian friar. His thinking on grace, free will, original sin, and the nature of time shaped every major theological debate of the Western world, and still does. He is the patron saint of theologians, of Algeria, and, in one of history's more charming surprises, of brewers. His feast day is August 28th. If Augustine's story moved you, subscribe to Saint Spotlight. We publish a new saint biography for every feast day. Our next episode is already on its way, so hit subscribe now so you don't miss it. And if you want to go deeper with today's saint, The Confessions is one of the most extraordinary books ever written. The link is in the description.